You are listening to The Writer's Block. I am horror author James Hershey Jr. It's time for a truth bomb.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of The Writer's Block. I'm your host, James Hershey Jr. And today I have my buddy Eric Wickman. He's a co-host for the Revolution Talk radio show, one of my bros, and he's going to be on with me today. We got a really cool show today because we are doing one of my favorite topics, which is the Wild West. I love the Wild West.
I do too. I'm with you. If I could live in any period, I would be the Wild West.
Oh, hell yeah. Because back then, men were really more free than they are now. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff you could do.
Mm-hmm.
That was more dangerous, obviously, and if you got sick, you might be kind of screwed. Overall, it was a pretty badass time to live in. And the guy that we're going to be talking about tonight was one of the most badass guys there, but it's also a guy that most people have never really heard of.
Which is sad.
Don't know about. It's a gentleman named Bass Reeves, and a lot of historians say that he is the real Lone Ranger. He was the guy that was the inspiration for the Lone Ranger. And as I go through his story with you guys tonight, you'll notice that there's a lot of parallels between his story and the story of the Lone Ranger from the movies and the TV shows and everything. So just kind of notice that as we go along. It's kind of interesting. There's a lot of heroes, I guess you could call them heroes, in the Wild West that people always talk about. You know, you got Wyatt Earp, you've got Billy the Kid, you've got...
Well, I would say legends. I would say legends.
That would be a better word. A lot of those kind of guys that everybody always talks about. But Bass Reeves is one of those guys that most people, unless you're like, you know, Wild West nerds like we are, they just don't know who the hell he is. So basically who he was born a slave. He was a black man who was born a slave in 1838 in Crawford County, Arkansas. Okay, and he ended up becoming the very first black U.S. Deputy Marshal, which, especially at that time, was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
The guy that owned him was a dude named William Reeves, and he was like a farmer/politician, and back in those times, most people were farmers/something, unless you like worked in town or something. But that's where he got the last name Reeves, is he took, you know, his master's surname. Well, the Civil War rolls around, and they end up going to fight in the Civil War, and his master took Bass with him to fight in the Civil War, and at some point during that service, Bass took off. Now, there's a couple different stories of how this happened, and I wasn't there, so I don't know exactly which one is true. One story says that he heard about the Emancipation Proclamation and all that, and he got excited about the idea of freedom, so he just snuck off and just bailed. That's one version. Another version is that he was playing cards with his master, and they got in an argument about the hand that they were playing, and he got pissed off and he stood up and punched out his master and then took off. I don't know which one's true, but knowing what I know about the man, I would say he probably didn't just sneak off in the middle of the night because he was a man's man. He probably whooped the dude's ass and then bailed. But like I said, I don't know for sure. He was tall for that time. He was 6'2", and in a time when most people were you know, 5'9", 5'10", so he kind of towered over people. But he was a cool dude, man. He, according to people that knew him, he had a really good sense of humor, and he was like super polite and honorable. And I'll be talking a little bit later about some of the stuff that he did, some of the stories of the captures he made, and some of that kind of thing. And you'll get to really see, especially one thing in particular that he did that really proves how honorable he really was. Because I don't know a lot of people that could do, you know, make the choices that he made. But basically, yeah, he went to the Civil War and he escaped, and he went and he hid out in Indian country. And he stayed with the Seminoles and the Creek Indians, and that's where he kind of hid out. And then once the war was over and the Emancipation Proclamation was finalized and completely legal law, and he realized that he wasn't going to be taken back to his master, then he went back to Arkansas and he started a family. He bought himself a farm and he started a family. And basically what happened was the Marshals, they got a new leader, and this guy decided that they were going to hire like 200 new deputy marshals to help them, because it was starting to get really crazy in the Wild West, and there was a lot of crime going on, and a lot of these outlaws were pretty badass dudes, and they just couldn't take them down. So they wanted to hire a bunch of people, a couple hundred people, and they had heard of Bass Reeves because of his knowledge of the Indian tribes and the fact that he could speak multiple languages from the Indians. So he could communicate with them well. So they thought he might be an asset, so they went to him and they ended up hiring him to help the Marshals. And basically what the Marshals did at that time, it wasn't like now where you have cops that kind of patrol. Basically what these guys did is you had a sheriff in each town, and you had a judge, and the judge would issue warrants, what they would call writs back then, for the arrest of these people that had committed these crimes. And so they needed somebody that could go track these people down and bring them in. And so that's basically what the deputy marshals' jobs were. That's what they did, is they would get handed a writ, and they would go hunt these dudes down, and they would bring them back so they could either face trial or they'd bring them back dead. A lot of times, what a lot of the marshals like to do is just to kind of find the people and kind of ambush them and kill them, so that they didn't have to worry about getting shot themselves. You know what I mean?
Plus, were most of the rich back then dead or alive?
Yeah, they were all dead or alive, so you had that option.
But you got paid more for the living, if I recall right. Yeah.
But a lot of them would take the dead option because they didn't want to take the chance of getting killed themselves. Because, like I said, a lot of these outlaws were real badasses.
Billy the Kid was one of the biggest ones.
But, Bass Reeves, he was an honorable dude, and he didn't want to kill people. So his record is pretty amazing. He captured and brought in alive over 3,000 outlaws, and he only killed 14 men in his entire career. And he claims that all of those were self-defense. So to me, that's a pretty amazing record.
I would believe him though, because if you have 3,000 that he brought in and only 14 dead, if he was just out there killing them and bringing them back, you'd have a lot more than 14. So I believe him that it was self-defense. And
the cool thing about Bass also is that, usually what would happen is they would say, okay, I got this writ here. Who wants it? And the people would look at it and they'd say, yeah, I don't want to mess with that guy. You know what I mean? I'm not going for that one. I'll take this one, but I'm not taking that one. Well, see, Bass wouldn't just take one. He would say, what do you have? And they'd say, we have these 12 or these 20 or whatever. He'd say, okay. And he'd just grab them all, and he'd just head out on his horse. And there's a story one time where he went out into Indian country. And here's one of the things that is parallel to the story of the Lone Ranger. Okay, is that anytime you went into Indian country at that time, you had to have a guide with you, a scout guide with you that was a representative of whatever tribe's area that you were in. Otherwise, you would get killed. But if you did it the proper way and you had a representative from their tribe that would go with you, then you were free to go into their territory to find the outlaw and bring him back. So a lot of people say that the whole idea of Tonto being the Lone Ranger's sidekick comes from Bass Reeves when he would go into Indian territory and have a scout with him. But one story that I was getting ready to tell is he left one time and went into Indian territory, and he brought back 17 outlaws, all alive, in chains, all by himself, just him and his Indian scout, brought back 17 dangerous outlaws alone and brought them back to face trial, which was pretty awesome.
Which makes me think maybe he was one of those guys that could handle himself in a fight too. So people were really, even the criminals were like, nah, we don't want to kind of fight with this guy.
Yeah, and he would do kind of cool things too. Like there was this set of brothers that were real bad dudes, and nobody really wanted to mess with them. And they were like armed to the teeth, and they were set up inside this cabin, like their mother's cabin. And there was really no way you could go there as a lawman without getting killed, because you'd have to approach the cabin and they just blast you as soon as they saw you coming. So Bass decided he was going to take those writs because he never backed down. You know what I mean? Whenever there was somebody to catch, he always went and got him. He didn't care how dangerous or scary they were. So he decided he was going to try to outsmart these guys. So what he did was he got up near the cabin, and before he went down to where they could see him by the cabin, he took his hat off and he shot his hat 3 times. And then he took his jacket off and he replaced it with an old tattered, ripped up jacket that he had brought with him. And then he walked down to the cabin, right? And then once he got to where they could actually see him, he kind of hurriedly went to the cabin door and started knocking on the door. And they opened the door, and he started telling them about how he was an outlaw that had just barely escaped the Marshals, and how, showed him the hat, showed him how the Marshals had shot holes in his hat, and all this kind of stuff, and he was asking if he could hide out there. And so they believed the story that he told them, and they actually invited him to join them on their next robbery that they were getting ready to do. They were going to leave the next day to go do another robbery, and they said, why don't you join our little gang here? You can be in on this next robbery. He said, that's cool, man. So they hung out, and they drank a little bit and all that. And so then they all went to sleep. Well, Bass didn't actually go to sleep. He just pretended to go to sleep. And then once the other 2 guys were asleep, the brothers, and they were like snoring, he got up and he handcuffed both of them in their sleep. And then he went and he sat down at the table and waited. And he didn't wake them up. He let them sleep in. And they slept in well past dawn. And when they woke up and realized they were handcuffed, he told them, hey, I got a warrant for your arrest here, and you're going to come back and stand trial. And they were like, well, why did you let us sleep half the day? He said, well, I want you to be well rested for your ride back to the fort so you can stand trial. So he was he had a good sense of humor, and he was pretty cool.
Well, that is pretty cool. Because most of them would have just came in there guns blazing and shooting it.
Yeah, and several had tried, and they had ended up full of holes and dead, But that's another cool thing about Bass is that he used his brain as much as he uses his brawn. You know what I mean?
Which was rare back then.
Yeah, and he had a tremendous amount of courage, because there was one dude named Bob Dozier. Now, Bob Dozier was, he was like a jack of all trades, as far as outlaws goes. He did all kinds of different things. He was known for bank robbery. He was known for murder, definitely, for, assault and battery, just being a total dick, basically. And nobody wanted to mess with this dude. I mean, every time they would try to give the writ to one of the Marshals, the Marshal would get killed. And so none of the Marshals wanted to go after this guy. And then Bass found out about him, and they offered it to him, and he said, yeah, I'll take it. So he went down there, and they found the guy down the bottom of a valley. And it was like canyons and rock everywhere. And he saw where he was, and he was trying to sneak down to him. But Bob Dozier saw Bass coming, and he started shooting at him. So Bass ended up behind a rock where he was just stuck there. And just bullets flying. Every time he'd try to move a little bit, he would get shot at. And he was shooting back, but he couldn't even tell where Bob Dozier was at that point because he couldn't see him anymore. So he was basically just a sitting duck. So what he decided to do was he fired 2 shots real quick to try to make Bob put his head down, and then he took off running, like right across the open field where he thought that Bob Dozier might be. So he just takes off running. Well, Bob Dozier watches him run out, and he fires, and then down goes Bass, hits the ground. So Bob Dozier waits there for a couple minutes and watches, and Bass Reeves never gets back up. So he figures, I got him, he's dead, So he gets up and he walks over to where, he shot Bass Reeves, and he's laying on the ground dead. And Bass Reeves waits for Bob Dozier to get within 5 or 10 feet of it. I mean, he walked super close to him. And then all of a sudden he just popped up with his rifle and shot the dude right between the eyes and killed him. That was one of the 14 that he did not bring back alive. But he actually got Bob Dozier, who was a dude that most people couldn't get. I mean, he robbed banks, he robbed stores, he robbed stagecoaches. He was a murderer. He did like land swindles, all kinds of stuff. This was a really bad guy.
Wow. Now, was he before... we hear all the other legends, and this is, I think, a shame that he doesn't get mentioned. But was this before Wyatt Earp and all them after or during or around the same time?
It spanned the whole gamut, because it was not too long after the Civil War that he became a marshal. And he started working, and he worked like 30-some years as a marshal. So he saw a lot of this time period that went through with Wyatt Earp and all of them, because most of the Wild West stuff happened after the Civil War. If you look at people like Jesse James, he was a soldier in the Civil War, and a lot of these outlaws were soldiers in the Civil War, and their job was to rob the enemy's shipments and rob the trains that were bringing supplies and all this kind of stuff. And when they got out of the service, when the war was over, they were kind of messed up from the war, so they just kept right on doing what they'd always done, you know what I mean, which is rob and steal and fight the war. Like Jesse James, for example, was a Confederate, and all the way up till the time he died, he hated the Union. And he viewed himself as still doing the work of the Confederacy, even when the war was long done, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he spanned a great deal of the time of the Wild West. I mean, even after he retired as a deputy marshal, he went and got a job as a regular police officer after that in a city, because they had started having normal police forces instead of just the sheriff of the towns. And another cool thing about Bass Reeves is he parallels the legend of Wyatt Earp as well, in a way, because you know how they always say Wyatt Earp was in all these gunfights, but he never got shot?
Yeah.
Like no bullet could hit him. Well, they say the same thing about Bass Reeves, because he never got shot. He got shot at a bunch of times, but no bullet ever hit him. So that's kind of a common theme with some of these dudes. Like, they say that about George Washington, too, about how when he was fighting in the Indian Wars, like the original Indian Wars with the French and the Indians before the Revolution, when George Washington was young. I'm not talking about the Indian Wars we fought later on in the Wild West. But when George Washington was fighting the original Indian Wars with the French, there was one battle where he rode into battle, and he wasn't a general yet or anything. He rode into battle, and he had this long flowing coat on. And I mean, they were just shooting the ever-loving hell out of him. They shot 3 different horses out from underneath of him, and he kept getting up and grabbing another horse and keep charging. And then finally, he just ran on foot. You know what I mean? Because there wasn't no more horses for him, and they shot him, and shot him, and finally the battle was over, and they retreated and everything. And Washington was still standing there, and his coat that he was wearing, which is basically like what we would call a trench coat now, but it flowed a little bit more outward. His entire coat was full of bullet holes, to where bullet holes and arrow holes from where he had been shot all these different times, but none of the bullets or arrows ever actually hit him and caused him to bleed or anything. They just hit his coat and passed through. And that's what they say about Bass Reeves too, is that he was never hit by a bullet, no matter how many people shot at him.
See, that's pretty cool. I think that has a lot to do with, though, if you pay attention, most of them back then, like Wyatt Earp, whenever he was in those big gun battles, it was usually when he got pissed off and really didn't care about living or dying. And he would just say, screw it, I'm going out there no matter what happens. Well, I'm thinking that maybe what happened with Bass, too, maybe he just at some points said, you know what, screw it. If I'm going to go, I'm going to go fighting, and in a way it kind of helped him.
Yeah, one thing that really strikes me, and always has struck me, about the story of Bass Reeves is he's unlike a lot of the other legends and heroes that we know about from the Wild West. One, because he's a black man, but mainly because he never showed any fear. According to everybody that knew him and all the witnesses and everything, he never showed fear. Like, one example is he was going after this outlaw gang of 3 people, and he was just him, and he went up on them, and they got the drop on him, because he came up where he thought they were, and they came around from the other side, and they got the drop on him. So they were standing there, or they were sitting there on their horses, and they had their guns pointed at him, and he hadn't been able to draw his gun or anything, because they got him before he was ready. And he just calmly reached in his jacket and pulled out the warrants, and he asked what day it was. And they kind of looked at him, and they were like, why do you want to know what day it is? He said, well, I need to know what to write down on here as the day I captured you to bring you back. And they kind of started laughing about it, the outlaws did. And they were like, you got a lot of balls, man. How do you figure you're going to catch us? We got you. You're going to die. You know what I mean? And while they were laughing, he drew his pistol really fast, and he shot one guy in the face and killed him. He grabbed the shotgun from the other guy and pulled him down off the horse and smashed his skull in with the butt of the gun. And then he looked at the other guy, and the other guy is sitting there just kind of in shock at what had just happened. In the space of a couple seconds, two guys were dead. You know what I mean? And he just was standing there kind of looking at Bass, and Bass just calmly looked up at him and he said, okay, these two guys are dead. This is wanted dead or alive is what the writ says. What's your choice? Do you want to come in alive, or should I kill you too? And so then the guy kind of, he just surrendered his weapons and he chose to go alive. You know what I mean? But in that moment where they had the drop on him, and it was almost certain that he was going to be dead. I mean, he didn't show any fear. He didn't beg for his life. He didn't panic. He was just totally and completely badass. It was like a Jason Statham movie,
Yeah.
Or like a Bourne movie or something. It was amazing.
That's just, and it's sad that the story never gets told. I mean, in a way, it kind of did with the Lone Ranger, but it didn't give credit to the fact that we're not only talking about one hell of an honorable man, a lawman from the past, but we're talking about a black man from an era where they were thought of as less than people.
I think that's why the story never got told,
Yeah.
Because had he been a white man, he would have been the greatest hero the West had ever known. I mean, because this dude, the stuff that he did, man, he makes somebody like Wyatt Earp, as amazing as Wyatt Earp was, he makes him look like nothing. I mean, Bass Reeves was the real deal. This dude would go in against entire outlaw gangs alone and bring them back, and to stand trial. I mean, he was a badass. And I think the reason why we don't hear about him or know anything about him was because he was a black man. I mean, and not only was he a black man during that time, but he's a former slave. He was a man that started out as a water boy, like bringing water to the other slaves, and eventually he worked his way up to field hand. I mean, he was a slave. He was a real deal slave. And he got his own freedom by escaping. And he became this great hero of the West, and somebody that was respected a great deal. And it is sad that story's not told, but I think that story's not told because he was a black man. And during the time when we were really organizing the Wild West in our history books and all that kind of stuff, was a time when black people still were not really viewed as equal, even though they were free, So I think that's why we don't hear anything about him. And I wish that they would teach more about him, not only because he was a black man that ended up becoming a great man, but simply because he was a great man, and he would be a great role model for kids today. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that he did that to me was the most honorable thing I've ever heard of, and I don't think that I could do that. I mean, I view myself as an honorable man, and I try very hard to be an honorable man. I mean, you know me, Eric. I tell you the truth. I don't bullshit nobody. I don't lie. I'm an honorable man. I keep my word. But in this particular instance, the story I'm about to tell about Bass Reeves, I do not believe I could have done the right thing in this situation. Okay, so here it goes. Bass Reeves' son was married, and he walked in and caught his wife cheating. And he went to his father, and he said, this is what happened, and I don't know what to do. And his father said, well, I mean, you should have beat that dude's ass and really got on your wife and showed her that that's not acceptable and all this kind of stuff. He said it in other words, but that's the basic message he was getting across.
In other words, whoop them both.
Yeah, basically, you should have shot the man and beat her ass and shown her who was boss. You know what I mean? That she can't treat you like that. Is basically what he said. Now, that's not the honorable part, but that's what he told his son. And I don't think he was being completely 100%, like literal about it, like you should do that. But who knows? It was a different time, so I don't know. So basically what happens is a little bit later on, a couple months later or whatever, his son comes back home again and sees that his wife is sleeping with another man. So his son kills them both and then freaks out because he had just murdered 2 people, and he takes off. Well, they issue a writ for his arrest. They want him brought in to stand trial. And none of the other deputies would touch the writ because they knew that it was Bass Reeves' son. And they were afraid that Bass Reeves might not do the right thing, that he might get pissed off that they're going after his kid and turn on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Bass Reeves was a bad guy, man. He was a bad dude. You did not want to mess with that guy. So nobody would take it. So Bass Reeves ends up hearing about this, through, how people talk. And he finds out that there's a writ for his son's arrest. And he finds out what had happened. And he goes up to his superiors and he demands that he gets the writ himself. He wants it. And they said, but that's your son. You know what I mean? Are you really going to be able to do this? And he said, I want to make sure that he's brought to justice because he broke the law. So he tracks his son down and finds him on a mountain, like in the middle of the woods. And he comes up on his son and sits down next to him on a log and starts talking to him. And his son kind of, starts to reach for his gun, and Bass tells him, you don't want to do that. You know what I mean? Please don't make me kill you. And so anyway, he convinces his son to come with him so that he can stand trial. And he does not chain his son up. He doesn't put his son in cuffs or anything like that because his son gives him his words that he won't run away. So they end up going back to town where his son has to face trial for double murder and end up hanging. And Bass knows that his son is going to end up either in life in prison or dead because of this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he did the right thing, and he went out and he tracked down his own son and brought him back to stand trial for murder because his son did wrong and broke the law. That's the kind of honor that this dude had. And like I said, I don't know if I could have done that.
No.
I mean, I'm all for honor and law and order.
But it's your son.
Yeah, but when it comes to your kid, man, I think I would have to protect my kid. I don't see how I could turn my back on my child like that, and even though it's the right thing to do, you know what I mean? But I just don't know if I'd be that strong to be able to do the right thing in that circumstances.
And that's exactly the right word, that strong, because it takes real strength to know that you're taking your child to possibly get hung, but it's something you believe in. So I'm with you. I don't know if I could, but at the same time, I would like to believe I could be that honorable. But again, it's your child. At what point do you that way, your job is to protect your kid no matter what.
Yeah, because I mean, we all would gladly take a bullet for our child and die.
Oh yeah.
If that's what it came to protect our child, we would die. And if you're willing to die to protect your child, how could you be the one that causes your child's death? You know what I mean? Now, granted, Bass isn't the one that caused his child's death because his child's actions is what caused his child's death, But in a way, you're facilitating his death because you're the one bringing him back instead of letting him go.
But I think in his mind, his son was a grown man. So in his mind, it was like, well, and it's same for every father and son. You want your son to be responsible when they become a man for the things they do as a man. So that might have been where he was coming from on that.
Yeah, it would be such a hard choice. And I bet you, I mean, he never talked about it, but I bet you that probably haunted him for his whole life. That decision. And he probably, I would think he probably second-guessed it several times on what he should have done,
Oh, I guarantee you on the ride up there to find his son, he was sitting there going, do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I say I just killed him and left him there? what do I do? And he had to have. There's no doubt in my mind that he had that going on in his head.
And see, and one of the neat things that happened was a lot of the men that he captured and brought back to serve time, basically, they were transferred up near New Jersey into this prison there. And when they got there, they started talking about Bass Reeves, the guy that caught them, and telling the legends of Bass Reeves and all the things that he had done. And it started spreading around the prison. And he became like a celebrity in that prison. Like it was almost like they were talking about Superman. You know what I mean? How amazing this guy was. And the interesting thing is, the people that came up with the idea of the Lone Ranger, they were located right next to that prison. So that whole local area there knew who Bass Reeves was and talked about the stuff that he did, because all the prisoners talked about it. The guards would hear about it. They would come out and they would talk about it. And the people that went to visit the prisoners would talk about it with the prisoners, and they would come out and talk about it. So it's something that spread in that whole community. You know, outside of the prison as well. That whole area knew about Bass Reeves and all the amazing things he had done. And then the people that ended up coming up with the Lone Ranger were in that community. And it's kind of neat because, like, Bass Reeves always rode a white horse. That was one of his things that he always did. He always rode a white horse. And he had these little silver coins that he used to leave as calling cards with people. So he was known for silver, and the Lone Ranger is known for the white horse and the silver bullets. He always had the big hat, like the Lone Ranger had. Most times when he went into Indian territory, well, every time when he went into Indian territory, in order to capture criminals, he would bring an Indian scout with him. And that's where the idea of Tonto, his Indian sidekick, comes from. It's like so many parallels to the story of the Lone Ranger coincide with the story of Bass Reeves. So, I mean, and there's argument over whether or not he was actually the inspiration behind that legend or not. Most historians say yes, he was. I think the facts are pretty plain. You know what I mean? It's pretty obvious. But then you have some that say no, he wasn't. Now, why they say that, I don't know. Is it because he was a black man? I don't know. Is it because they just think that it's all circumstantial? I really can't tell you. But I just wish that more people knew about his story, and maybe more people will know about it, because I'm doing a show on it now, and I believe the History Channel, I think they did a show on him a long time ago as well. And you know, it'll be on the YouTube video of this thing, and maybe it'll spread around a little bit, and more people will be able to learn about this man, because he was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like. I think it would be I would actually love to see that movie.
Yeah, I would love to see him make an actual Lone Ranger movie with the character of Bass Reeves being who he actually was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have the Lone Ranger be a black man, and have it be realistic the way it actually happened, instead of having the white guy on a horse, you know, white horse with the shooting silver bullets, and, you know, with Tonto and all that stuff that you get from the Lone Ranger, but have it be actually Bass Reeves and his real story. That would be an amazing, amazing movie.
Yeah, a more realistic version. Sort of like they did with the Tombstone movie. I would love to see a more realistic version of that. And I think what would make it epic is if they did the part with his son, making him have to go find his son and having him hunt down a lot of the criminals that nobody else would.
Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. That Tombstone story, that's another one that fascinates me, because, and it's not for the reason that most people are fascinated by that movie and that storyline. It's not because of Wyatt Earp. What fascinates me about that whole story is Doc Holliday.
Oh yeah.
Doc Holliday was a badass, man. And it's funny because if you look at the guy, he looked like a little dandy. He did not look like somebody that you should be afraid of. You know?
Yeah, exactly. He was tiny.
But he was a cold-blooded killer. I mean, he was just scary. reality, but he didn't look like he would be, you know? So that character of Doc Holliday is the one that really impresses and intrigues me. I mean, yeah, Wyatt Earp was cool, and he was a badass, and, he never got shot and all this stuff. But here you have Doc Holliday who's dying of tuberculosis and can barely breathe, you know? And he's just mowing people down left and right. And the friendship that he had with Wyatt Earp, to where no matter what kind of scrape Wyatt Earp got into,
he was there.
Doc Holliday was always there to have his back. You know, no matter what the odds, even if he thought, okay, this is definite, certain death if I go do this, he was right there. You know, count me in, number one. You know, every time. And that, to me, that right there is the really impressive part. And I'd like to see a movie made, or a documentary made, or something on Doc Holliday. You know, not focusing around Wyatt Earp like they always do, but instead that whole story from his viewpoint.
Yeah.
That would be really, really interesting.
Because, and that's what a lot of people don't understand, is Doc Holliday actually saved Wyatt Earp's life more than one time. There were many occasions where Doc Holliday, who considered Wyatt Earp his brother, he loved Wyatt Earp like he loved no other man. And he saved Wyatt Earp from many, many times that Wyatt Earp would have died, without a doubt. And a lot of people don't catch that, and they're just focusing on Wyatt Earp, the lawman, and they don't focus on the fact that Doc Holliday, who was a criminal, who Wyatt Earp, I mean, had it been Bass Reeves, would have been taken to prison. If, you know, Wyatt Earp could never do that.
I think it's very possible that Wyatt Earp, that Doc Holliday was the reason why Wyatt Earp was never shot. You know, why he was never hit by a bullet was because he had Doc Holliday there to have his back.
Yeah, it very well could be, and that's why I said he saved his life. Like, if you watch the Tombstone movie, that fight he was supposed to have with that guy Johnny, that guy would have killed him. No question, that guy was just as vicious as Doc Holliday with a gun.
Oh yeah.
That guy would have killed Wyatt Earp in a flash, and Doc Holliday knew that. So he went to fight him, and even sick, on his deathbed, he still whooped his ass. So I wish they would show more of because we've seen the Billy the Kid story in multiple movies. We've seen, you know, all kinds of the villain movies, but never have they done an actual Doc Holliday movie.
Yeah, that would be awesome, and because Wyatt Earp himself said that Doc Holliday killed the majority of the people that Wyatt Earp got credit for killing. That it was mostly Doc Holliday that was doing the work, not him, you know?
Yep, it's just sad. The people that we're talking, like Bass Reeves, with Doc Holliday, there's a lot, and I guarantee there's a lot more legends that not a lot of people know about from the Old West that they should know.
Oh yeah, then there's tons, and it would be, you know how they're doing now with the Marvel and the DC movies, how they have all these different superhero movies, and they kind of are coinciding with each other and interweaving.
Yeah.
And you have like this whole comic book universe now that's doing all these different movies that are lining up together. They could do the same thing with a lot of these heroes from the Wild West.
Well, there's a new one coming out that I want to check out, The Magnificent Seven. I want to see that one.
Now, is that just a rehash of the same old story that we've seen 100 times?
I'm not sure if it's a rehash or if they completely redid it. I'm going to look into that because I really want to know, because I love the Magnificent Seven story. It's sort of like your comic book superheroes of the Wild West. So
it's a great time period. For stories like that, because there was so much life and death drama that happened, you know, and it was a rough place because you didn't have all the law and order that you had in the cities.
Well, no, I mean, if there's one example, if we stood out here and somebody dishonored you or cheated in a card game in the Old West, you went outside and had a shootout. You had a draw. Well, if you did that today, you're going to prison. But back then, it was considered legal and okay because, well, they were a cheat and a liar. So it was a rough time period. Plus, if you If you were our age in the Old West, we were considered senior citizens like 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a young man's game.
Uh-huh.
And you had the thing also about the Wild West that not a lot of people understand. They don't put two and two together. They don't realize the reason that there was a Wild West. Most of it was because of the prospectors in the beginning, because they would find gold someplace, and then tons of people would rush to the area to try to find gold. So some people were successful, most people weren't. The majority of the people that actually got rich during the gold rushes were the store owners, the people that sold the shovels and the picks and the stuff like that you needed to go out and try to find the gold. Most of the people were actually looking for the gold. They lost everything. They didn't find anything. But see, they would come into town and they would drink and they would be upset and frustrated and pissed off, and it would lead to a lot of fighting and a lot of, other behaviors that weren't good at all. And a lot of times when you would have fighting and stuff going on, it would escalate because everybody was carrying weapons and everybody was drunk and everybody was pissed, and it kind of snowballed, into a really bad situation. That's what made a lot of these lawmen even more impressive, is that they weren't dealing with Mayberry. They were dealing with Vegas on a bad night. I mean, it was just, and they called it the Wild West for a reason, because it was wild,
And another thing that I don't think now this doesn't seem like a big deal to some, but I think if you're going to paint an accurate picture of the Wild West, you get all these clips of them going into saloons and ordering whiskey and stuff like. Do you know where the idea of the mixed drink came from? The so-called women's drinks? The Wild West, the cowboys never, ever walked in and ordered straight whiskey or any of that stuff because it was considered gut rot. And what that means is the alcohol was made so poorly that you could go blind or you could die from drinking it. So they ordered all the mixed drinks to mix it up. That's where you get all your little frou-frou mixed drinks that these men nowadays don't want to drink. It's from the Wild West, but in the movies all you see is these guys ordering these drinks that they would not have drank back then.
Yeah, a lot of them were. And see, the problem was, the reason for that is because you didn't have real quality whiskey in these little shithole towns.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get good whiskey in the cities back east, but you have to understand that a lot of these places sprung up because of the prospectors. So they were boom towns. They would pop up almost overnight, and as soon as everybody left, they would go away. So these places, it wasn't like you had a railroad that went all the way across the country at that time either, to where they could just pop off and, okay, let's order another case of whiskey and it'll be here on Friday. That's not how it worked. Most of the saloons had to make their own, and a lot of it was like Eric was saying, was rot gut whiskey, man. It was so strong that literally it might kill you.
Yep.
You never knew. So a lot of times they would mix it, they would water it down so that the actual amount of alcohol in it wasn't as bad and that people could drink it.
Yeah, and that's where you get all your mixed drinks from. And that's what bugs me about, I love Westerns. I'm a big Western fan, just like you. And it is my favorite time period in history. And that's what bugs me about it, though. They don't really paint accurate pictures of it. You don't get the full, they want to make them seem tougher because of what they drink. But in all honesty, them drinking the frou-frou drinks that they ordered was making them tougher because they weren't going blind, they weren't dying, and it's just, people need to know these things, and not everybody knows this stuff. It's, they ordered whiskey, they used to drink whiskey straight, and that's what a real man did. No, they didn't. You guys are wrong.
And see, you had the prospectors, like I said, and then you also had two other groups of people that would come. You had the ranch hands, when they would have the big herds of cattle that started, and you would have the cowboys that actually worked the ranches. And when they would get their pay once a month, they would come to town and spend most of it on, whiskey and prostitutes and just gambling and having a good time. So you'd have those guys that were in town to party. And when they came in town to party, they were going to party, and they partied hard. So that would lead to a lot of problems that the law would have to deal with. And then you would also have the railroad people. A little bit later on, as they started to build the Transcontinental Railroad, when they would stop by these different places along the way as the railroad was being built, you would have all those guys that would be in there causing trouble sometimes, because they were guys that worked extremely hard. I mean, you had Chinese labor that was brought in from China who didn't even really speak much English, and they were people that were not loved or liked or even barely tolerated by most Americans, because they were coming over here and taking American jobs, and they were just weird and different than what we knew.
And I've heard a few historians say, not to cut you off, but I've heard a few historians say that back then the Chinese were considered less than black.
Yeah, they weren't even barely considered human.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I started with them, because they were the lowest on the totem pole. And then a step up from them, you had all the black labor, who were freed slaves mostly, who now got jobs for the railroad, and they weren't allowed to do the good jobs. They did the crap jobs of digging through rock, basically, chipping away at rock and digging out the track, like the place where the track was going to be laid.
Yeah.
They would have to dig through the hills and all that stuff with shovels and pickaxes. The Chinese, they were fundamentally used for blasting and stuff like that. They would put them in the mountain where, like, if the track was coming through and you had a big chunk of rock you had to go through, the Chinese were the ones that were blowing holes in that rock. And a lot of them died. A whole lot of them died doing that job, because it was very dangerous. The blacks would dig out the path for the track, and then the people that actually laid the track, most of those were the Irish that they brought over, who also weren't very good either, but they were a step up from the blacks. And they were the ones that were responsible for laying down the track and pounding it in and everything. So you had these three groups of people that would come into town to let off some steam, spend a little bit of their pay, and just try to make their life seem like it was going all right or something, because they had a hard job, and it was a terrible job. And so then when they would get off work and they could come into town and they could drink and they could party a little bit, and it's a lot like we do nowadays. If you have a job, you work in a factory, 5 days, 6 days a week or whatever, and you're busting your ass in a factory, and it's mind-numbing menial labor, and you don't enjoy it. So when you get off work on Friday and you get your paycheck, what do? You go to the bar and you blow it. You blow some money drinking and partying and just living it up. It's the same back then. But the problem is, you had a lot of people that didn't view those people as people. You know what I mean? They were viewed as less than. And so there was a lot of conflict there. So that's what the lawmen were facing back in that time. And then a lot of these people would get into situations where they broke the law, and then they would take off. So then that's where somebody like a Bass Reeves would come in, who would get the writ for their arrest, and they'd have to go track them down. Like, say you're in the casino or in the saloon and you're playing cards, and you think somebody cheats you, so you jump up and you shoot them in the face. Well, then you're guilty of murder. And then you freak out and you run. Well, then they have to track you down and bring you in. Now, if you called that guy out as a cheater, and you challenged him, and you went outside and you did the old high noon showdown kind of thing like you see in the movies, where you actually have a duel and you shoot the guy dead there, that's a fair, honest fight. You wouldn't get in trouble for that. But you would get in trouble for just shooting him in cold blood and then running,
Yeah.
Which is kind of a strange, weird idea for us today, to think that you could challenge somebody to a duel back then and go out in the street and shoot them dead in a fair fight, you know what I mean? In like a gunfight, like they used to do, where it's like, okay, draw, and then you both draw your weapon and shoot.
Yeah.
That was considered legal. I mean, you could do that. That's one thing that they show in movies that actually did happen in the Wild West, which is insane to think. I mean, imagine that nowadays, if that was still considered okay.
But you get a lot less drive-bys.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nuts though to see two guys out on the street shoot each other.
It would be insane to see that, but we're talking. I mean, we're talking about a whole different time period too. So that's what people got to remember. It wasn't like it is now. I mean, if we saw that today, there would be uproar in the streets. People would be freaking out. You know, it would be insane.
It always amazes me when you look back in history, and not only our history, but in world history, okay? And you look at the way people were in different time periods and the things that were acceptable during those time periods. And then you look at society now and you think, wow, what a difference, you know? How could any of that, like for example, in the Middle Ages, it used to be totally acceptable for a king to sleep with the bride before the groom got to.
Yeah, the night of their wedding, the king had what was it called?
I forget the exact term, but it was some kind of right that the king had, where if you wanted to marry somebody, he had the right to sleep with your bride before you did.
And it wasn't just the king; it was the lords of the land
too. The nobles.
Yeah.
And it was just crazy to think, like, wow, man, you could, like, say you're in love with somebody, and man, I love that girl, and you want to marry her, and then some noble asshole comes up and is like, I think I'm going to have your wife first, you know, and then on your wedding night, he takes your bride away and bangs her out, you know what I mean? That's just crazy to think about, but it was completely normal then, and I'm sure that the people that it was happening to didn't enjoy it too much. They probably didn't like it at all, but what could they do, you know?
They would have died a worse fate if they had done something about it. There were a lot of, I mean, they could, back then too, they could also not only that, but they could take your children if they wanted, and you couldn't do anything about it. It was...
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example of that is Elizabeth Bathory. A lot of people know her. She's the noble that used to bathe in the blood of children in order to try to stay young. And what she would do is she would actually choose young maidens from the village, and she would request that they come to the castle to work at the castle for her. And then she would actually murder these little girls and drain all their blood into a bathtub, and then she would get in the bathtub and take baths because she believed that bathing in the blood of young virgins would keep you young and heal your diseases and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And what's weird about that, dude, is there is a practice that's along those same lines that still happens today among a lot of the real rich people, you know, and the real powerful people like the Rothschilds and the Bilderbergs and all those kind of people. You know, the ones that everybody says runs everything?
Yes.
A lot of those people, they do the same thing today, but only a little bit different. Instead of bathing in the blood of children, what they actually do is they do blood transfusions from children. So they'll get children to donate a ton of blood, or not really donate because they pay for the blood, but then they will go in like once a month and they will have blood transfusions done where they actually transfuse all of their blood out of them and the new kids' blood into them. And there's actual scientific evidence and medical research that shows that this actually works, and it will make you live a hell of a lot longer. You could be struggling with a disease like cancer or something like that, and through blood transfusions, you can actually extend your life a great deal. I mean, like the Queen of England, people say that she has these transfusions done all the time, and she's old as dirt.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm surprised she doesn't fart dust.
But then we saw in that other show we did on her, that statement that she put out about being a reptilian and all that kind of stuff. So there's a whole nother level of weird going on there.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you look throughout history and time periods, there's a lot of that stuff that makes us go, what the hell were we thinking back then as a group, as a race, as humans? I mean, some of the stuff they did back even in the West, from the wild, hell, even in the 50s and 60s, or 50s and, yeah, and from the 50s and 40s in the United States, they were doing stuff that we look at today and go, what? So it's an interesting contrast from time periods.
And it's weird because it all seems to flow in like a repeating pattern, you know? Because you have a lot of the same stuff that was done in the past gets done in the future, you know? Like people will learn from the mistake at first, and then they won't repeat it, but then eventually they forget and they repeat the same things again. I mean, if you charted it out on a graph, it would look like a set of rolling hills. It would be up and down, up and down, up and down. And every time it goes back up, they're committing that same mistake that they already committed before. And then they learn from it, and then it goes back down, and then it comes right back up again every time. And I mean, each time the circumstances are a little bit different, but the same basic things keep happening over and over and over again.
And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that they don't paint an accurate picture of the way the past was. They sugarcoat it. They water it down, so to speak, to make it more palatable for people instead of actually showing the real history of things. Like, even when they talk about Dracula, we've seen it in the movies, they'll hint around to the stuff he used to do, but they'll never really get into the detail of, this man literally used to stake people alive from the ass through the mouth, stake them alive and leave them on poles all around where he was. But they'll never get into that. They may show a quick scene or a quick mention, but they won't do that. That Melissa, what is her name, Bathory?
Yeah, Elizabeth Bathory.
Elizabeth Bathory. They've made mentions of it in Hostel 2. You know, there's been little hints of it somewhere, but they've never told the story. So they're trying to water down this history instead of showing people the real history so that they may learn from it.
Yeah, and I believe, I said this in the first show, and this is kind of the message of this show, is I believe that history is really made up of stories. It's all kinds of really fascinating, interesting, and educational stories that make up our history. And through learning all these stories, not only are you going to be entertained because they're interesting and enjoyable stories to learn, but also you're really going to give yourself some real true wisdom, because you will be able to start to see these patterns in history, and you'll be able to learn how to avoid them, you know? Yep. You'll be able to look at situations and say, oh shit, I've seen this before. This happened here, and this is how it turned out. So I need to be aware of that and try to make it so it does different this time. You know what I mean? It really helps, and that's what I would like to do with this show is, I mean, I have no illusions of changing history with this show, but what I would like to do is ignite a fire inside of people, a love for history, so that they can enjoy these stories as we tell them, and they can learn about people that they've never heard of before. And some of the people that I talk about, or some of the things that I talk about on this show that they have heard about before, they will learn things about them that they did not know, you know? Yep. That will give them a more full rounded picture of who the person really was, because there's so many things that we're taught in schools that just aren't true, you know, like the whole story of George Washington cutting down the cherry tree, and his father says, who cut down this cherry tree? And he says, I cannot tell a lie, it was me that cut down the cherry tree. Stuff like that shit never happened. It's not true. Yep. That is not a true story. It never happened. But yet it's still taught in school like it did. And there's so many things like that they teach in school that it's just complete nonsense. And then they leave out so much, like this guy Bass Reeves that we're talking about today. This is a guy that is not only important to African Americans because he was a black hero, but he should be important to everybody in America, because it really shows, it's a real true rag to riches story, because he went from being a slave to being a very well respected, legendary deputy marshal of the United States. I mean, it was an amazing story, this guy's life. but we're just robbed of it. We're never told that. So that's what I want to try to do on this show, is give people the gift of these stories that they've never heard before. I mean, everybody knows I'm a horror author. That's what I do for a living. I write books. So stories for me are important, and I believe you can learn a lot through them. So that's the basic idea of this show. Now, whether it works or whether it doesn't work, we're going to have to leave that up to the listeners. You know, they're the ones that are actually going to make the call on whether or not they enjoy this show and they enjoy this kind of thing or not. But I think that it's a very important thing, and it's something that I'm very passionate about, is learning our histories and stuff. Also on this show, I want to do not only just lost histories and history, but I want to do mystery stuff too. Like, I would love to talk about things like the Bermuda Triangle and the lost city of Atlantis, and I want to talk about different cryptozoological things like Bigfoot or Loch Ness Monster. All those kind of things is what we're going to be doing on this show. And I'm going to be joined by Eric a lot on this show, and some other people as well. And we're going to try to give you a researched inside look on some of this stuff, and just hope that you enjoy it and that you learn something.
Yeah, and another thing about Bass Reeves is I personally feel he's more of an inspiration to every man, because he, not just blacks, not just whites, but any man in any culture, in any race, because he is not just a hero, but he's a man who showed you no matter what you come up with, no matter what you've gone through, you can turn your life around and still be an honorable man. You don't have to succumb to your situation and be something that is not good. And I think that's another great thing about it.
Yeah, absolutely. But the reason I focus in on the fact that he was black and that he should be a hero to black people today, the reason I say that is because so much of their history
is lost,
has been just wiped away and not taught, and there was a period of time in our country where they were told, and I mean our recent history too, like we know people that were alive during the time when these things were happening, that they were told that they weren't worth a shit. They were less than human. They were terrible. They didn't deserve the same rights we deserve. They didn't deserve to have a good life and safety and all these things, right? They're being told this, and at the same time, they're hiding the history of people like Bass Reeves, who prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that narrative is wrong. I mean, here you had a black man that overcame slavery. He overcame intense poverty, and he became an inspirational man, a great man in our history. So that flies directly in the face of the narrative that black people can't accomplish things or they're not worth anything, right? That's why I singled that out, is because here they're being told this stuff, and there are examples of great African-American leaders and great African-American inspirational stories that just aren't being taught to anybody, And I think it's sad.
It is. It's a tragic state that they're taking all that away from people. I mean, even our history, black history, Native American history in this country, it's been taken away and pushed aside like it's not a big deal. And I'm sure there's many legends that we ourselves were told by our ancestors and our elders for the Cherokee Nation and for all, other Native Americans, the same as blacks. I'm guaranteeing you, there are more than Bass Reeves, there are more than Geronimo that are out there that we could learn from on how to be a better person.
Yeah, I think next week, that gives me an idea. Next week, I was thinking about doing like either the Bermuda Triangle or Atlantis next week, but I think what we'll do instead is, if you'll join me again next week, Eric, we will do a Native American episode next week, and we will cover like the Trail of Tears, what actually happened there, which a lot of people have heard of the Trail of Tears, but they don't understand what that actually was.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some of the different massacres that happened, and we'll just cover that whole general topic next week. And I think that'll be really educational for people. We'll talk about Custer and the Last Stand. Everybody views that as like Custer was the hero and all these terrible Indians, but there was a lot that went on with that
Yeah.
People don't understand. I mean, Custer attacked the women and children. That's why the Braves attacked him. They didn't come after him to kill him just because they wanted to. He attacked the women and children of their tribe. That's why that happened. And we'll talk about a lot of that stuff next week. I think that'll be a very cool and very interesting episode.
Yeah, I'm in, because you know me. I love my history. I'm a history nut. I love everything about history. From ancient Egypt to our Native American, which is personal to me because I am Cherokee. It is very personal to me, as it is to you because you are too. I think these stories and these things need to be told, and they need to be told correctly. They don't need to be sugar-coated. They don't need to be watered down. People need to know the real history of these things.
And I think it'll be fun to tell these stories because it's listening to us talk is not like watching something on the History Channel, because we will tell you not only the truth, but we will tell you in a way that you'll enjoy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll tell you if somebody's a badass, we'll say, hey, this dude's a fucking badass. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whereas History Channel can't say those kind of things. So, I mean, I think it'll be really cool, and I hope everybody will tune in. And I hope everybody tunes in tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is going to be the Horror Basement with Justin Cool, and he's got a whole lineup of horror movies that he's going to be talking about. And we've said it on our Revolution Talk radio show, and I believe we said it on the Politically Incorrect show too, that Justin is like the Rain Man of horror movies and pop culture. I mean, this guy has more information than anybody I've ever met. And it's really amazing to listen to him. So I hope you guys check that out tomorrow. And then Saturday is going to be the We're Screwed show with Old Boy and Ant-Man and Tony Ninefingers. And that's a fun show. I did the debut show of that with them as their guest. And that's a great bunch of guys. And believe me, you're not going to hear anything like it. So you guys should definitely tune into that show.
And I'll be on the second hour of their show, so...
Oh, next week? This coming Saturday?
This coming Saturday, I'm on the second hour of their show as their guest. So
very cool.
And our fans know me. I have no filter. I don't care who likes what I said and who don't. And believe me, what you guys don't understand is me and these guys have had conversations about some of the things I say. Like the inauguration of Hillary, if it happens. We've had plenty of discussions about that. But in the end, you're in for a treat, no matter what show it is.
And then on Sunday, I believe is going to be the debut episode of the Splatter Hour with Gage, right?
Yes, it is. He's fine. Sorry about last week to our fans. I just want to make this clear. I didn't really specify in the chat, but for all our fans, we had technical issues with Gage's computer, and we really couldn't get on to do the show. I hope you got a little bit of what we talked about on Monday with his birthday spectacular. But if you didn't, Sunday, tune in, because right after The Walking Dead, we're going to go live, and there is nobody in the... Justin is the Rain Man of horror and pop culture. I give him that. But my son is the Einstein of zombies. I've never met... He's only 18, and this kid knows more about zombies than I can even think to know. So tune in for that.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. And then we have Monday night will be the Super Show, which is the Revolution Talk radio show. That has all of us on it. It'll have me, Eric, Gage, and Justin.
Yeah, and I don't know what we have planned for that show. We still haven't gotten together, listeners, so we're working on what we're going to do for the show. So stay tuned for that, because we'll update everybody as we figure it out.
Then Tuesday is Style Chic with Nikki and Amanda. That is a show for the ladies, by the ladies, on fashion and neat crafting things and just all kinds of that kind of stuff. Last show they did last week, I just put on YouTube this morning. So go check that show out, everybody, on my YouTube channel. Just look up James Hershey Jr. on YouTube, and you'll bring up all the videos. I just put that episode up this morning. They did a really cool episode on Halloween do-it-yourself stuff, like different Halloween costumes, and different drinks and different crafting ideas and stuff like that for Halloween that you can make yourself and not have to go to the store and buy. So it was a very interesting episode, actually. And it's weird to hear me say that because I'm not into fashion or style or any of that crap. I'm not. I wear camouflage almost every day. I live in the mountains. That's what I do. I'm not a fashion guy at all, but it's actually an interesting show, so check that out, guys. That'll be on Tuesday night. I'm not sure what they're talking about this Tuesday, but I'm sure they know what they're talking about, so give them a chance and check that out. It's kind of interesting. Wednesday will be the Politically Incorrect show with me and Eric. That's an interesting show, too. I'm going to be putting up, probably tomorrow, the video from last week's show, or yesterday, really. It's not even last week. It was just yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We were on the show. Of yesterday's show onto YouTube, and we're on every Wednesday night at 9 for that show. And that show is basically anything goes, no filter, just us as raw as possible. You know what I mean? Not just cursing all the time. That's not what I mean by raw as possible. Just unfiltered. There's no rules.
Yeah.
Anything goes. And we talk about everything.
It's not like our flagship show, Revolution Talk Radio. The Politically Incorrect, I came up with because I wanted to do a show where I didn't have to monitor what I said and who I offended with the things I said. That was the whole idea behind it. Because I guarantee you last night we offended midgets and amputees, prostitutes.
That was such a fun show, though, man.
Yeah, it was great.
And I do want to book some of those people on the show if we can get them. And Thursday, we'll bring you right back here to the Writer's Block again. And next Thursday, we're going to be doing the Native American show, so check that out. Also, everybody, check out all my novels on Amazon. Just look up James Hershey Jr. on Amazon. You get them. I'm the guy that wrote the Legion series. It's I Am Legion, The Surrogate of Souls, and The Rise of the Revenant. And my other novel called The Wind Spirits is on there. Check those out. They can be bought on Amazon, on Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, all those places. But I like Amazon because they have the Kindle versions, which are on sale for 99 cents right now. So you can get a good deal there. And also they're on Prime, so if you want the hardcover book, it can be sent to you in a couple days, which is sweet. I also do autograph copies. The autograph copies are $20 a piece, and that covers the $15 that the book cost, and then just the $5 to ship it to you. I don't charge anything extra for the autographs. But all you have to do there is send a check or a money order for $20 to James Hershey Jr., P.O. Box 489, Strasburg, Virginia, 22657. The reason I'm giving this information out is because I had a couple people today ask me about him, actually. And then I realized I haven't given this information out on the radio for quite a while now. So I figured I'd go ahead and do it here. So if you guys want an autographed copy, just send a check or money order and just write me a little note and let me know what book you want and what you want the autograph to say, basically, like who you want it made out to. And then I'll get that out in the mail to you.
Unless it's Michael Caine.
Yeah, unless it's Michael Caine, you're not getting nothing. Also, I want to give a shout out to my boys down at Valley Vapors, like I always do. They're a vape shop here in Woodstock, Virginia, the best one in the area. So if you guys vape, you need juice, you need rigs, you need mods, you need anything, go see them because they're the best. They know exactly what they're doing.
Do they have an online thing you can go to?
They have a Facebook page that they do. They don't have an online store yet because of all the damn regulations with the government. That's the problem.
I'm going to tell the listeners. I'm going to tell listeners right now, you need to start using these people no matter when they get their online store going, if they do. If you can order stuff through them on their Facebook page, find out, because they do a lot for our vets, and that right there alone is reason enough to go through them.
Yeah, that's why I talk about them all the time. I mean, I'm not being paid to do this. You know what I mean? I'm not getting advertising money from these guys to talk about them. But the reason I do is because I've been involved with them on a couple of events now where they've raised a lot of money for a charity that I really love called Carry the Fallen, which is a charity that helps out vets that come back that they're either injured or they have post-traumatic stress and that kind of thing. They do a lot to help these guys out. And to me, that's important. You know, that really shows where somebody's heart is when they're trying to help people like that. So that's why I support these guys 100%. I mean, I buy all my juice there I'm a vapor myself. I buy my juice there. I buy my mods there, my coils, all my stuff I get from Valley Vapors in Woodstock. And I'm telling you, you're not going to find a nicer group of guys, and they know so much about the whole industry of vaping, and they can rebuild your mod for you. Every time I break these things, I take them in there and I say, hey, again, help me, and they fix me right up in like 10 or 15 minutes. It's amazing. And most of the times they don't even charge me to fix the vapes, which is awesome, because I break them all the time. But just want to let you guys know, man, seriously, if you're in this area and you're a vapor, then definitely stop in and buy some juice from them, buy something. And if you're not a vapor and you happen to be in this area, just stop in and say hey to them and tell them that you heard about them on the show and with the work that they've done for the vets, that you appreciate it, because that goes a long way with people, is just let them know, that you appreciate what they're doing for them. So that's why I always talk about them, and hopefully you guys will check them out. And when they do get an online store, if they do, I will definitely give that information out. But you can find them on Facebook. Just look up Valley Vapors and you'll find them, and you can drop them a line there and just say hi and tell them thank you, for what they've done, that you heard me talk about them on the show, and that you just wanted to say thanks. That would be great.
Yeah, I think that's a necessary thing. We need to show more thanks to people who are doing the right thing by our veterans. So, and I want to stress this to our listeners, because I got asked this question earlier. Some half a butt puppet that I blocked on my Facebook asked me, oh, you guys just say the things you say on your show because you get money, you get sponsors. Let me clarify this, and I mean this with all sincerity, and I'm saying this 100%. Me and my host on all of our shows, none of us get paid to say or plug anybody. I receive no money. I won't take money. And we've had a discussion about this. All of us have. There is no financial gain for us in doing this or promoting someone. We don't get free stuff because we're saying them. We don't get money because we're saying their name. We don't get anything from them. We just plug them because we think they are good people or good businesses that need recognition. Something that it's lacking in this world of, oh, I don't get paid, I'm not saying it. No, just say it because they're good people or a good business. Doesn't matter if you get paid.
And that being said, let me say this to all the listeners. If you own a business, okay, and you are having an event to help our troops, or some other kind of charity event that benefits a worthy cause, then drop us a line, let us know, give us the information about them. And we will be more than happy to talk about your business on air as well, because we really believe in that. I mean, we believe in giving back and helping other people. I mean, that's why with all the merchandise that we're going to have coming out for our shows, that's why the profits from that merchandise are going to be donated to charity. You know what I mean?
Yep. Because
we really believe that. We believe in helping each other. And that's what we have to start doing as people, is helping each other and loving each other, So, believe me, if you have a business and you're doing something to help the troops, or doing something for cancer research or some other worthy charity like that, send us the information. Let us know, Send us the documentation that you've actually done the donations and stuff, and we'll be happy to talk about you on air. And you will see that you don't have to pay us.
No.
We will freely talk about it if you're actually doing the work to help the people, you know what I mean? Because we believe in that.
And if you say you want to pay us anyways, I can tell you what I know my other co-hosts and hosts are going to say. Donate the money to the charity that you are doing this for. That's all. I don't want to receive anything from it. I really don't. Because when you're talking about vets, which is something very close to me, when you're talking about cancer, something, again, that's very close to me, and these two topics should be very close to everyone. I want to stress that. You should do all you can to fight cancer and help our vets. When you're talking about stuff like that, I don't really want money from it. I don't want to see a dime from that. So please, let us know, and you will be talked about every week on every show we can get. That's what we do here. And on the merchandising front, we just came up with a shirt design. And all of us approved it. We got the shirt design ready. Shirts will be coming soon.
And if you are a charity, okay, and you would like us to talk about your charity, if you have a website that people can go to and donate, stuff like that, message us. You can message me, James Hershey Jr. on Facebook. You can message Eric Wickman on Facebook. Message us. Go on to our Revolution Talk Radio, or Revolution Broadcasting Network page on Facebook, and leave us a message there. Post there. Let us know what you're doing and how we can help you. And we'll be glad to give that information out on the air and tell our listeners, hey, if you guys want to help cancer, for example, this is where you can go to donate. These guys are doing great work. If you want to help our troops, go here and donate. You know what I mean? Because they're doing great work. We really do these things for people. So if you are a charity and you're trying to raise money for an event or whatever, you have an event coming up, let us know. We will advertise your event for you for free on the radio.
And I got one that I'm particularly passionate about because I think it's a tragedy. It's called Connor's Cure. It's about pediatric cancer, which I think is horrible. Kids should not have to suffer through this. So look up Connor's Cure and donate and try to help solve cancer for kids, because it's really sad what these little angels have to go through on a daily basis. So look that up and please do something.
So I believe that if we all band together, we can solve some of these problems, You may think one person can't change anything, but if you as one person decide you're going to help, and then another person as one person decides they're going to help, if that happens, even, let's say 10% of our audience does that, okay? We've had shows where we've had 18 million listeners, okay, on the show. So if only 10% of the listeners decide to help, then that's 1.8 million people that have decided to help. Even if you each only give $1,
that's 1.8 million right there.
Yeah, that's almost $2 million that is donated to go towards helping whatever that thing is. If each of you decide to give $10, then you're talking $18 million you've done raised. I mean, it's to think not one person can't make a difference. Yes, you can. You just have to try. You just have to do it. You know what I mean? You can help solve some of these problems. Because like stuff with our troops, a lot of the problem they have is just funding. They need the money to help these guys.
Yeah.
They know how to help them. They just need the means to help them with. So that is in our power to do. Cancer's a little tougher because yes, you can give money, and some of that money will go towards research, but some of that money also goes towards housing the families when they're taking their kids in, to get cancer treatments and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's all going to a good thing, but it's a little bit tougher nut to crack because you actually have to try to find a cure for the damn thing, So that's a little harder. But like with our troops, man, you can help. Every dollar that you give is a dollar that can go towards helping those guys who served us, So, I mean, you really can make a difference. So please don't be pessimistic and think, oh, you can't do it, you know what I mean? And we're not like a normal organized charity, that gives maybe 10% of the money that comes in to charity. Everything that we receive, like for the merchandise has to be paid for in order for us to get it to ship it to you. We have a price that we get it for and then a price that it's sold for, okay? So when we pay the price that we have to pay for the stuff, and then we pay for the shipping to ship it to you, then whatever the rest of that money is, which is our profit, 100% of that is going to the charity that we say it's going to. We're not taking a cut of that for ourselves. We're not making anything off of the merchandise.
Nope.
All that money is getting donated, 100% of it. Because we're not selling merchandise in order to make money for ourselves. We're selling merchandise in order to help people. Because that's what we really believe in. And it's that old saying, put your money where your mouth is. That's what we're doing. We're putting our money where our mouth is, literally.
Yeah, because we would be hypocritical if we said, donate, and here we are not doing that. It's not what we're about.
And I'm going to have an event coming up soon with Valley Vapors, actually. I had a meeting last week with the owner, and we're talking about doing an event on one weekend where we have people come in to raise money for Carry the Fallen. And I'm going to be doing interviews with people at that event and recording pieces of sound for it, and we're going to play some of that stuff on our Revolution Talk radio show and let you know how much we raised and all that kind of stuff once it's done. Now it's not an event put on by the radio show. It's not us doing the event. It's Valley Vapors doing the event. They offered to pay me to come in and be like the celebrity guest and kind of be there for the event so I can sign for people and sign autographs and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I'm doing the event for free. I'm not charging them anything to go in there and do it because I believe in the cause. You know what I mean? And I will be recording stuff from that event to put on the show so you guys can hear it, because I think it'll be really interesting. I want to talk to some of the military people that are there and get some of their stories. I want to talk to some of the people that are donating. I don't know how much of that will get on the air and how much won't. It all depends on what I get. You know what I mean? Like what kind of material I have to work with when I listen back to it. But we're going to bring you some of that from the event when we have it actually nailed down when it's going to be. We're still in the planning stages right now, but that'll be a really cool event, and hopefully we can raise a lot of money to help the troops.
Yeah, hopefully. And if you can't donate money, it's as simple as seeing a vet walking around and saying thank you. Because believe me, it means a lot when somebody actually says thank you. It shows appreciation for what they've had to sacrifice. So do whatever you can.
And we'll keep you guys updated on when different charity events are happening that we're going to be involved in. I mean, this thing that I was just talking about at Valley Vapors is going to be me doing it. But if any of the other hosts have events that they do, hopefully they'll be recording some sound from it and we can hear it on the radio, you know what I mean? And we'll definitely plug their events and talk about them. And basically my message is, guys, I love you guys, all of you. I love all the hosts. I love all the listeners. And we have an opportunity here. For whatever reason, we have a very large audience. And I think it would be a really special thing if we could all band together and raise some real money to help a lot of these people out, you know what I mean, who really need it. Because, I mean, literally $10, that might be what getting a cappuccino every morning cost you for a week, you know what I mean? And if you could just cut that out for 1 week and give that $10 to, the soldiers, then it could really make a difference in their life. Because if a lot of different people do that, that ends up being a hell of a lot of money, or whatever you can donate. I mean, I myself donate a lot of my own money and my own time to these causes that I'm real passionate about. And I mean, if you're not into that, that's fine. If you just want to listen to the shows and enjoy them because you like listening to them and they're fun and they're exciting and you enjoy them, that's totally cool too. You don't have to donate if you don't want to donate. We don't charge you a damn penny to listen to these shows. They're all 100% free to you. You can listen to them on YouTube. You can listen to them on the actual Mixlr app. I mean, like I was saying earlier, we have anywhere from 10 to 20 million listeners per show usually. So there's a lot of you listening. And I think if we can get some of you to actually donate to some of these charities and help, that would be amazing. Because I think we could really change a lot of people's lives for the better.
Or even if you can't donate, just mention them. Just start talking about them, getting the word out there about them. That will help too.
Yeah, and when we go when we post stuff on our Revolution Broadcast Network Facebook page about these different events and different charities, just give it a share. That would be wonderful. That doesn't cost you a penny, but it lets a lot of people see it. And any of you guys listening, if you haven't liked the page on Facebook, go ahead and go over and give it a like, and that way it'll show up on your news feed and you can see these things when they pop up, and give them a share.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, we don't post anything that's, how do I say, risky or disturbing or nasty. We post what we talk about on our show, our shows that we have, and like he said, the charities that we do for other people. So that's what we do. So don't be afraid that if you do this, we're gonna flood your screen with a whole bunch of stuff, because that's not what we do. All we do is we post when the show's coming on. We let you know. We post We post our shows that we put on YouTube, and like I said, the charities that Hershey works with here, or that any of us might do. So that's all you're going to get with us. Because I know a lot of people have problems when they like pages. All of a sudden they get 50 million things flooding their news feed, and it's a problem. We don't do that here.
Yep, and we'll never charge you to listen to the show. It's completely 100% free. And a lot of people don't know if you listen to the show live, like, see, we have the option, you can listen to the show live, or it's posted later. After the show is over, you can go and listen to it on a replay. And I put them all on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube and watch all the shows. But if you actually listen to the show live, there's a chat room that you can open up on the actual web page. And you can actually get in there and you can chat with us while we're doing the show live. So you can ask questions and we can answer your questions on air. Or like we did yesterday.
Yeah.
Actually, we brought a listener who was in the chat, wanted to come on, was talking, and we actually called them on Skype and put them on the show with us, and they talked on the show for a little while before she got back off. So that's a possibility too. If you have a good point, you want to talk about something, then come on into the chat if you're listening live and let us know and give us your Skype name, and we can call you on Skype and you can be on the show with us and you can talk about stuff, because we want to have that kind of relationship with our listeners. We encourage you to come into the chat and talk to us while we're doing the show, and we'll respond to you. So that's another option. I know a lot of people listening to us on the playback, and there's a lot of people listen to us on YouTube, but some people listen to us live when we're actually doing the show. So if you have the opportunity to join us for a live show, definitely take advantage of that chat room, because not a lot of people know that it's there. Because I've talked to several listeners on Facebook, and I've said, hey, why don't you get in the chat and you can ask these questions, when we're doing it live, and they're like, you have a chat room? So, a lot of people don't know that there is a chat room available there that you can click on when you go on to the actual Mixler page.
Yeah, and even if you don't agree with us, even if your comments don't agree with us or your questions you think are they're not going to upset us. I encourage you, if you do not agree with us, give us short feedback. Give us what you think, and we'll go and have a nice discussion about it. We're not here to beat anybody up. We're not here to, unless you're going to politically incorrect, in which case all bets are off. But on our normal shows, I just had to put that warning out, because I don't want somebody to get on politically incorrect and be like, oh, well, you said you would. Well, this is not the normal show. But on our Monday show or any of our other show, our host will get back with you, and we will answer your questions, and be sure to get whatever you want to say. I'll make sure it gets put out there on the air live. You just got to click on the little thing that says chat, and you're good to go. And you can start typing us questions and telling us your comments. So do that, please. We encourage it.
Yep. And I think we're going to go ahead and wrap this one, because we've strayed way off of our original topic, which is cool. But join us next week for another episode of Writer's Block. We're going to do the Native American episode next week. It's going to be really fascinating stuff. And please check out all of our different shows, man. We've got 7 different shows, one for every day of the week, that is made up of a combination of all of us, or in the case of Style Chic, it's totally different people. And the We're Screwed show is totally different people that are not on the normal Revolution Talk radio show. So give a listen to all the different shows, and give a like to the Facebook page, and just basically thank you guys for listening, and just want to let you know that we all love you, and we will see you again next time.
Yeah, and tune in tomorrow for the Horror Basement with Justin Cool.
Absolutely.
All right. Stay positive and love your life, everybody.